Hi, I'm Krista Campbell. Welcome to the Rock Technologies GIS Water Panel, the challenges and rewards of cloud migration. This webinar is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the Rock Technologies website. You will receive a follow-up email that includes a link to the recording. I encourage you to post your questions in the questions dialog box during the webinar. You can post these at any time. We will answer as many questions as time allows. And if you have a specific question for one of the panelists, please identify that panelist in your question so we know who you're asking. At the end of the webinar, a survey will launch. This is a short survey and it only takes a minute. We appreciate your feedback on this survey. We do look at them, so please just take a minute to complete the survey. Rock Technologies is an Esri Cloud specialty partner that takes IT and ArcGIS Enterprise Management off your plate so you can focus on what you do best, GIS. They've been an Esri partner since 2013, and as you can see from this slide, they have other specialties in addition to the cloud specialty. Our panel today will discuss the challenges they face migrating to the cloud and the benefits gained. David Forbuss is a GIS technician at Rogue Valley Sewer Services. David earned his Bachelor's of Arts in Geography from the University of Hawaii at Hilo. He has worked for Rogue Valley Sewer Services since March 2015. Prior to joining Rogue Valley, he was a GIS specialist for the Public Pueblo of Sandia Tribal Administration in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Andrew Gerberry is a GIS coordinator at Delco Water Company, a mid-sized water utility in Central Ohio. Andrew is a graduate of Ohio State University and currently working on completing the MGIS program at Pennsylvania State University. John Harris is a Chief Technology Officer at Rock Technologies with over 26 years of experience in web-based GIS, IT, and database administration. Able to quickly design solutions and troubleshoot problems effectively using his broad technical experience, Mr. Harris stands out as an enterprise GIS and cloud expert. He is the architect of Rock Technologies Managed Service Program. Jennifer LaRue from Rock's development and marketing team will be moderating the panel discussion today. Jennifer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Krista. I appreciate it. Thank you, Esri, for partnering with Rock on this panel discussion, and we look forward to getting this all started. We're very eager to hear from our GIS leaders, so let's just go ahead and dive in with a little bit of background. First and foremost, can we just hear a little bit about your GIS organization, your role, responsibility, what your customer needs are, just to kind of give some context for our attendees today. David, I'll start this off with you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, my name is David Forbuss. Work for Rogue Valley Sewer Services. We're located in Central Point, Oregon. We manage sanitary and stormwater sewer systems for multiple municipalities in the Rogue Valley. Most of our system is underground, so mapping can be a challenge. Some of our daily activities are CCTV work and flushing maintenance. We also receive quite a few requests for locates for various construction projects. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Andrew?
Hi, thanks everybody. Yeah, so my name is Andrew Gerberry. I'm a GIS coordinator for Delco Water Company, which is located just north of Columbus, Ohio. We are mid-sized, but pretty quickly growing. We have around 50,000 customers right now and cover around 900 square miles of service area across 8 or 9 counties and have 2,000 miles of water pipeline. We're sort of a unique company in that we're not government-based. We're actually a private nonprofit, water only, so we don't currently do wastewater at all. With us being as fast-growing of an area as we are, it does present a number of unique challenges. So moving to the cloud was definitely the right move for us.
Thank you so much for giving us sort of a quick introduction to your organizations. Just would love to kind of understand from the audience that's with us today. We just want to do a quick poll around your consideration of the cloud.
All right, Jennifer, we're going to go ahead and launch that poll. Everyone should be seeing a poll that's asking, when does your organization plan to move to the cloud? If you would take just a few seconds to answer the poll, our options are 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months. You don't currently have plans to move to the cloud, or maybe you're already in the cloud, or possibly you have plans, but they're a little further out, 1 to 3 years. Well, people are voting. We have a few more left. Looks like right now about 43% don't have plans to move to the cloud. 21% are already in the cloud, and then the rest of the answers are divided somewhat evenly, about 15% in 0 to 6 months and about 15% that would like to move within the next 1 to 3 years. That's most of our audience. Thank you everyone for participating in the poll. Jennifer, back to you.
Thank you. Well, 43% don't currently have plans. Hopefully, hearing firsthand accounts from both of these panelists today will help drive you to have a little bit more of a opportunity in the future. So let's dive into kind of our questions today. We would love to kind of hear firsthand, what challenges did your organization have with your on-premise GIS implementation? Andrew, I'll let you start us off.
Yeah, so like 43% of the respondents a year ago today, I did not have plans of moving to the cloud. Where this all started actually was with an Esri health check, which I highly recommend to anyone that's having performance issues on premise or just in general. I think it's a good activity to do. It was really enlightening to see how everything was working for us or not working. So on premise, one of the issues that we had is we had a shared SQL server basically that was hosting our GIS, our asset management system, and our billing database. And what we discovered in the Esri health check, not surprisingly, is that SQL server was overworked and not able to meet those demands, which was causing a lot of the slowness that we were happening, that our users were seeing. So one thing that is a little bit unique about us, I don't know if anybody else in here has heard of this, but we use a third-party web mapping application called GeoCortex. And so that's how the majority of our customers, Delco employees, access GIS data. And that's where they were seeing a lot of slowness then, was from this. And so in talking about solutions, Esri proposed upgrading to Portal. We were at version 10.4, and current version is 10.8.1, I think. So in order to do these upgrades, they were, recommending all these server upgrades, and our IT department was like, whoa. That's, I don't know that we want to get into the business of doing this, and maybe it's time to start looking at the cloud. And so that really began that search into that. And just to add another layer of complexity, we're also in the process of switching our asset management system. So, as if a cloud migration wasn't enough, this is also going on. And so it all of it adds up together, and so we're still in the process of migration, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But that's kind of what got us started on this path.
Great, thank you. David, how about for Rogue Valley?
So we didn't have an enterprise installed locally. We were using just ArcMap with geo databases and shapefiles shared on a network drive. And we ran into problems where the data wasn't up to date. Everybody had different versions of the data. So that was our main reason to want to move to the cloud, was that we could keep everybody on the same versions. And like Andrew was saying, we started looking into deploying on premises and having to get a new server and all these different costs involved with that. We just kind of stepped back and thought, well, maybe a cloud solution would be better. Early on, they would give you a kind of trial version of ArcGIS Online, so we tried that, and everybody seemed to like it. So that really kind of pushed us to want to go to the next step, and we ended up going with EMCS originally, and found that that really wasn't working so well for us. So we got in touch with RockTech, and it's been great ever since. So yeah, we've been pretty impressed. So.
And how long ago was this, David?
This is in 2018. So we've been using Cloud GIS for about 3 years now. And prior to that was just the shapefiles and geodatabases on different laptops and on network drives and kind of scattered around. So that was a bit of a challenge, was trying to gather up all that data. But I can talk about that a little bit later.
Perfect. Hi, Jason.
Hey.
Are there are there any additional sort of on-premise pain points and challenges that you hear?
Well, I tell you, David and Andrew sort of really hit on the big one that we hear most often, and it's the kind of the disconnect that we all kind of see between GIS and IT. So, historically, GIS has been, more of a desktop-centric application, right? And it's grown so much over the past few years. It's grown to this, really large and complex enterprise system that has, dependencies across the organization. So when the GIS person who has, historically run desktop and that's just about it. There are a couple other things, and then they go to IT and say, IT, we need 8 new servers. We need to, open up the firewall, and we're going to start sharing all of our data and all of these requirements. Then IT kind of gets that, whoa, we don't. You guys just make maps. We don't understand. Why do you need all these servers? So, bridging that gap between GIS and IT is really a big part of our job when talking to the organization, so they can understand what all these servers are doing, and what are the best practices, how to design them in a secure manner, and make really good use of cloud resources. The thing to remember is that a system, an ArcGIS Enterprise in the cloud, is really no different than one that is hosted on premise. It's just you go about it a little bit different, but the hardware resources are still there, the servers are still there, those shared network resources are still there. It's just running in a different location, and you have all the benefits of the cloud, of all of the scalability, redundancy, and really the durability of the system in general is just so much greater when it's running in a cloud environment.
Thank you. Well, so we've heard a little bit of some maybe challenges with on-premise. So let's kind of just extend that and talk a little bit about why did you choose to make the move to the cloud? Were there certain considerations that you had? Did you have any sort of perceived gains? How did you go about kind of the approval process of considering the cloud as maybe a solution? David, let's start with you.
Sure. One driving factor for us was we have a lot of field crews, and it was a challenge trying to get that data in their hands. So we had them all set up with laptops that they would carry around, and their work environments are pretty tough on those type of devices. So we had that trial version of ArcGIS Online, and we sent some of them out with iPads, and they really liked it. And that was a huge plus, was that they were able to access the data while out in the field, and it was live. It was something that if there was a map change or something, I could do it and they'd see it right away. And so that was pretty impressive to them. As far as rolling out and getting approval, like Jason was saying, we were looking at an on-site deployment, and the security issues were brought up quite a bit. And so the idea of having it separated into a cloud environment really sat well with management. So we were able to get that approved and move forward.
So you were able to sort of do a test run, kind of to get the buy-in of the team, and sort of then address some of the issues or concerns from a management perspective as well.
Correct. Yeah. I know the field crews really like being able to access the data when out in the field, so that was huge for them.
Andrew, how about Delco?
Well, so I did already talk a little bit about, sort of the why we decided to switch, but I think one of the biggest perceived gains that we talked about was going to be that performance enhancement from it. Just separating our GIS out from an overworked server, and the cloud is very scalable, so you can allocate resources to it. It's easy to have to many servers that these things live on. We had already been using ArcGIS Online a little bit before that, but our field workers need access to GeoCortex in the field because GeoCortex is pretty heavily integrated with our asset management system. So you're able to create work orders from the map that are then created in that asset management system. So field workers before were having to access GeoCortex using a VPN, and that just having a VPN like that slows a lot of things down and adds another layer of complexity to. I feel bad saying this, but it is a group that's not necessarily tech savvy to begin with. So it was pretty frequent just to get calls saying GIS isn't working, and that's well, okay, is it the VPN, is it Wi-Fi, is it stuff like that. So accessibility, I think, from the field was going to be a big reason too that we were looking for.
Great. So I think this would be a perfect time to run another poll to find out from our attendees what kind of concerns do their organizations have around migrating to the cloud.
Sure thing, Jennifer. We're going to launch that poll. Attendees should be seeing the question, what concerns do you have migrating to the cloud? Your options are security concerns, return on investment or cost, performance gains, the migration process is a concern, maybe you don't have resources or expertise at your organization. Oh, those votes are coming in fast. Thanks, everyone. Please do vote. Got about 60% of our audience voting right now, with 55% leading the pack on security. So we do have some concerns around security. As the votes are coming in, it looks like the migration process and lack of resources is giving security a good run. All right, you guys, I can see some of you still haven't voted. If you just take a second to answer the poll, we would appreciate it. What concerns do you have migrating to the cloud? Okay, Jennifer and panel. It looks like the migration process has taken the lead at 52%, securities at 49%, lack of resources at 46%, and that's followed up by return on investment and performance. I'm going to close the poll and we'll send it back to the panel discussion.
Well, we timed that poll just right. I guess the migration process itself bubbled up to the top, and that's kind of the next question that we have for our panelists. So would love to dive into that migration process and really hear firsthand, what was that like for each of you? How did you prepare for it? What were the hardest parts of moving off premise? And on the flip side of that, what went really smoothly? Andrew, you did this not so long ago, so I think it'd be great to start off with you.
Yeah, well, and still in the process of it. So, like I mentioned earlier, we are also in the process of switching our asset management system. And so back in September of 2020 is when we started the build, the setup of our cloud environment. And one of the questions that they ask you is, do you want to try to do a hard cutover or a soft cutover? Hard cutover being, you come in, end of day Friday is the last time you used your on-premise, and then you come in Monday and you've got this new system, and it's just, you're there, you're ready to go. Soft cutover being more so you kind of take your time to set everything up and make sure that everything's working, and then it's a more gradual process. And I think we were kind of, gung ho at first, saying like, oh, we want to do a hard cut over. We don't want to have these two environments. We want to have the cloud ready to go, before our asset management implementation was done. And I wouldn't recommend trying to do that. The migration process does take a while, especially if depending on the complexity of it. For us, there's accessing things on premise still is probably one of the bigger challenges of getting to do that. But when I say challenges, I mean that's Jason, I'm sorry, this is something I kind of push off on Rock, because that's and where they've been fantastic in figuring that stuff out is I'll say, hey, this is something we're doing on premise. How can we make this work in the cloud too? So that's how that migration process has been. I kind of have to hold off on it until our asset management system is ready to go, because like I mentioned, they are heavily integrated. So it really doesn't make sense for us to deploy the cloud, integrate it with our old asset management system, and just have to switch it. So, I'll keep you posted on how that goes in the next couple months. But, so far, just since then, it is, at times it feels slow going, but looking back on it, it's not that bad of a process, and it really helps you clean up your data and understand what you have to work with.
Just can I ask about that, cleaning up the data? Was that part of the preparation? Were there other things that you were sort of doing before the migration?
Yeah, I think the preparation before that is kind of just looking at what you have, and you don't want to pollute this new pristine environment with the years worth of not maybe best practice things that you've been doing. And that goes as simple as just cleaning up unused feature classes or domains, or like our GeoCortex viewer had gotten kind of messy, and so I'm rebuilding that from scratch too. So some of these things aren't necessary. Sure, you could just kind of bring everything over, but I think for my sake, for the organization's sake, I think that it was better to prepare that data for the migration.
Great. David?
Yeah, so for us, it was a little unique because we didn't already have enterprise deployed. So we weren't only moving into the cloud, we were also deploying enterprise. And so there's a bit of a learning curve there for myself and the other staff. Everybody's used to using shapefiles and having direct control of data sets on their own desktops. And so moving into the cloud, I know it was a bit of a challenge trying to get them used to the permissions levels and what you can and can't do in a database environment. And I'm trying to learn at the same time. And I think it was just once we started to get the apps into their hands, they saw the value in it. And we had a lot of paper forms. So we were making that migration from them, taking pieces of paper out in the field, they bring them back. And so we were trying to emulate that. And Survey 123 does a pretty good job at that. You can make it look like the paper form on a tablet. So that helped a lot, and then getting some buy-in, because they're so used to using that same paper form for maybe 10 plus years. So we used a lot of Survey 123. As far as preparing our data, we kind of we set a date. I think it was 5 years back. Said anything older than that, we'll just archive. Anything within the last 5 years, we'll move into the cloud environment. And we were with the Esri Enterprise Advantage Program, the EEAP, sorry. And they sent somebody from Esri to help us on site get all that data in and kind of roll out our first apps, which was a map change app. So that helped a lot for me, especially. And I think getting that first app in everybody's hands really helped with the buy-in for the staff. So.
David, was there anything that went really smoothly that you were sort of surprised by, or I mean, obviously every situation is different, but I'm curious if there was something kind of surprising about the process.
Well, For me, it was just seeing that the SE geodatabases are really similar to the desktop geodatabases that we had before. So that helped with me being able to learn the enterprise environment. I think in transferring the data over into the Esri schema was pretty smooth, less smooth than I thought. And also the security issues that were coming up. People were very concerned about security issues and logins. And once we got, everybody set up with a login, I think they were a lot more comfortable with the security levels. And, they're just feeling okay about things being kind of, kept behind the server. So.
Great. And Jason, Rock does this every day. Do you have any practical kind of proven tips for a successful migration you want to share?
Sure. Well, let me start by saying that, as you probably already heard from David and Andrew, that there are no similar, there's no same migration for everybody, right? Everyone is unique. Everybody's got unique challenges and unique data and unique requirements. They do fall into some of the some buckets that are similar. Like for example, with David, it was a brand new enterprise deployment, so that's pretty straightforward. You stand up the servers, you move what data they have into an enterprise geodatabase, set them up, and off to the races. Andrew's, on the other hand, is quite a bit different because they have an on-premise, ArcGIS Enterprise already running. So then that becomes the question. Okay, should we do a complete, what we call lift and shift, meaning clone their servers and bring them up into the cloud? Or should we do kind of what he was alluding to, the soft cutover? And I'm always a big proponent of the soft cutover because that's where you have your two systems sort of running side by side for a period of time. And you can really take that time to thoughtfully design and architect what your system is going to look like now, and how you'll be able to expand it in the future. You don't really want to drag along, everyone's got those map services that have been running for 5 or 6 years that probably no one ever hits. There's no reason for them anymore. So why drag along 10 years worth of clutter to this brand new, like, super performant environment? But yeah, make no mistake, you can literally pick up an existing system on premise, pick it up, move it over, start a brand new one, as David did, or kind of take this time to thoughtfully, consider all of the different options and architect that system properly. So there's lots of different ways to go about it. Nobody is going to be the same, but figuring out those, like Andrew was talking about, like figuring out how we're going to get their local file system that they have running on premise, how we're going to get that to, all of a sudden just work in the cloud too, and how they're going to, talk to systems that still need to talk to on premise in the cloud. And there's, so many different things and so many different tools that are available, specific to migrations. The other thing, just briefly, a lot of folks were concerned about the security. And I'll be completely honest, it's my feeling, and I did a whole webinar on this, just this one topic. Security is always a big issue, and it should be treated as a big issue. In my mind, security is better in the cloud. You have much more finer grained control over all the different aspects of your infrastructure. The firewall ports, and there's no physical machine that somebody can kind of slip in and drop a USB stick into and, lock up your entire system with a crypto. And again, just the ability to snapshot, your entire enterprise environment, take that snapshot and ship it off to a different region, that if something ever did happen, or the system was infiltrated, we have that ability to literally bring that entire environment up as it was, within just, an hour or so. There's so many more different options. And I feel like the security controls that are available in the cloud, the ability to log, every single thing that happens and have that trail, and you can look through those logs and you can see exactly what happened. So I'm a big proponent of moving to the cloud specifically to enhance security.
Great, thanks, Jason.
Sure.
Just quickly for the attendees, I believe Krista mentioned there's a survey at the end, and every migration process is different. And if you'd like, Rock is more than happy to reach out to you. If you would like us to, there's an opportunity to say yes, please reach out to us, and we will talk to you about your specific needs when it comes to migration and/or security. All right, well, let's talk about today. So we're sort of in the cloud, or almost fully migrated into the cloud, and I'm just curious, how are things? Have you been able to expand and/or improve your use of GIS since moving to the cloud? What sort of has evolved or changed? David, I'd like to start with you. You've been here for a little while, so it'd be interesting to kind of hear what sort of has evolved over time for you guys.
Sure. Initially I didn't know anything about enterprise, so there was that learning period where I did learn about the web apps, and I wasn't super comfortable in that environment. And over time I've learned how to use it, and now, and Esri's made it really easy. A lot of that technology has advanced quite a bit in the past few years. So, it's great. I can get in there, I can get a request from a staff member. They say, hey, we've been doing it this way out in the field. Maybe they have an access database or something that they're storing their data in. And I can get in real quick into Web App Builder and build a web app for them, and they can start recording that data. And then now the field crews also have access to that data. Recently, last year, we had a fire come through one of the residential areas here, burned out quite a few houses. It was great being able to have that data accessible and stored somewhere else. And the field crews right away start going out and doing assessments on the burned structures. And over time, I'm able to roll out more apps, and having RockTech manage the kind of the security side and the cloud side of the enterprise deployment gives me more time to develop those apps. So we're just constantly rolling out apps. We have a 3-year plan. Things kind of shifted a little bit because of the pandemic, but pretty soon we'll start getting back to developing more field apps. And it's been a pretty impressive process, I'd say.
That's great. Andrew?
Yeah, so we are still in the migration process, obviously, but just from what I've seen so far, so Portal is new to us, so that's something that we got as part of the cloud migration too. I'm still learning Portal a little bit, and some of the benefits that we'll be able to use there. I'm already seeing huge performance benefits, in the cloud versus on-premise, especially with our GeoCortex. But I mean, even ArcGIS Desktop, everything. I mean, it's amazing how fast things open. Something small like that you take for granted that, maybe it's not normal that it takes, Arc Catalog 2.5 to 5 minutes to open. Just seeing that so far, I'll definitely revisit that question in a couple months once we have gone live with it. The only tough part, I think, is that a lot of Delco staff might not be able to tell the difference between what is our new asset management system and what is, what has happened as a result of the cloud move, just because it's happening at the same time. So I'll know the difference, but I don't know that other people will be able to pinpoint it and say, hey, this is that. But I mean, that's where we're at today, and I think it's a positive trend over the next couple months. So
great. Jason, do you want to share some additional color?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, actually, Andrew picked up on something that I love talking about, and it's two things. So in the cloud, obviously, everything is scalable, right? So if you're if you're rolling out a new application and you need a bigger server or whatever, you need more resources. Obviously, it's in the cloud. It's quite straightforward. It's a click of a button. There's no more going through this big long procurement and ordering the new servers and yada yada. So you're only paying for what you use. So if you need that extra horsepower, if you just need it for a really short amount of time, you're just going to be that short amount of time. That's a small bill. The other thing that Andrew mentioned here was that his applications are faster. People don't realize that, or some people do, most people don't, that you can virtualize things like ArcGIS Desktop, but more importantly, you can virtualize applications like ArcGIS Pro. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because to me, I think ArcGIS Pro was meant to be virtualized, right? Because if we have these applications and they're actually running on a cloud machine, right? ArcGIS Pro is running inside the cloud. That means we can allocate all of those cloud resources to make ArcGIS Pro run really as it was intended. And most importantly is that server-side GPU. So when you open up Pro, I mean, we've all done that transition from desktop to Pro. We know the Pro can be challenging at times because of its hardware requirements, right? When running that in a cloud environment, we have the ability to attach these GPUs to that machine, and Pro just absolutely flies, right? Everything it's amazing. So all of the heavy end, heavy hardware requirements that you used to have to go buy a $3,000 workstation for, all of that, the heavy duty laptops or the, really expensive workstations, that's almost irrelevant at this point because that entire workload, all of that compute has been moved up to the cloud, right? So when you open up ArcGIS Pro, locally on your desktop, in your office or at home or really wherever you are, it doesn't matter. You're seeing just having pixels pushed to you, right? You're just seeing the results of using ArcGIS Pro. All that work and the rendering and all that high-end CPU and RAM, that's all happening up in the cloud. So a lot of folks that had already migrated to the cloud, right? They've already have their entire workload, all of their ArcGIS Enterprise, their editing workflows, everything that had already moved to the cloud. So obviously when the pandemic hit and everybody is now working from home and they're trying to scramble on if I'm going to VPN into my office desktop or do this, the folks that were already in the cloud, they saw no interruption in service because they were already working remotely from their VDI client, their virtualized workspace. So that was a kind of a side benefit to these big cloud moves, and obviously I think the remote workforce is here to stay in many cases. So having the ability to virtualize that entire environment and interact with your data, no matter where you are, is really a big deal. It's a big benefit of a cloud move.
Definitely. Thank you. So we've got one more poll. I think you've heard from everyone around the benefits, but we'd like to hear firsthand from you guys. What are the benefits that you see migrating to the cloud? Krista?
Got it coming to you. What primary benefits do you see migrating to the cloud? Everyone should be seeing the poll at this point. And your options are increased delivery speed, ability to scale or shrink capacity, increased collaboration, cost savings on your hardware, your software, your IT operations, and even a competitive advantage. Got 5 different options here. Let's see. Almost have half of the audience voted so far, and right now the ability to scale is leading with 76%. I'm curious to see if that sticks in the front there. What primary benefits do you see migrating to the cloud? Votes are coming in. Right now, competitive advantage is at the bottom. Maybe our attendees haven't really thought about it in that way, but it's an interesting option. And I do see about 11% of our respondents saying yes, that a competitive advantage is one of the benefits. I'm going to leave the poll open for just another couple seconds. We still have votes coming in. Want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to participate. All right, it looks like a majority of our attendees are voting. While I read off the results, it'll have just a second for those of you that haven't voted yet. Right now, 71% the ability to scale or shrink, followed by 62% cost savings. And then we go to increased delivery speed, increased collaboration, and trailing is the competitive advantage. Thank you everyone for participating in the poll. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Yes, that was. It's always helpful to see what each organization is considering as a key benefit. We know that there's many of them. So at this point, I'd love to just ask if there's any organizational success metrics that David and Andrew can kind of share, either that they're experiencing or sort of projecting. You know, ROI is always valuable in making the case to move to the cloud. So anything that you can share with our audience would be great. Andrew, we'll start with you, just because I know you're still mid migration, but please.
Yeah. So yeah, we haven't really established any you know, key metrics yet, or established a return on investment. But you know, I think that once it is fully deployed, that we will it'll be pretty easy to look back and have some concrete numbers and say, you know, these are the cost savings that we incurred from this. This is you know, the performance gains that we've got from this, because you know, we still have that Esri health check report that we can look back on from a year ago and say, hey, this is how poorly performing our system was before, and this is how it works now. And you know, just you know, the cost savings, I think it's a really underrated part of this, because you know, RockTech, or you know, any cloud provider, well, I don't know about any cloud provider, but RockTech especially ends up being a really fantastic almost like addition to your IT department. Because when I have, you know, that kind of like the real high level issues now, you know, I don't go to our IT department like I did in the past, who are not experts on GIS or you know, how GIS should live on a server. But RockTech is, you know, filled with experts and people that, you know, I've never had them tell me no on anything. You know, I've definitely had some, you know, some challenging things, you know, going back and forth on premise and just trying to rebuild stuff, and they have yet to not figure one out. So that's I think going to be one of the biggest organizational success stories for us.
That's great. David, how about from your perspective?
Sure, and I can just add to what Andrew was saying. As far as response times go, we've had excellent response times out of RockTech, and I know that was a concern at first, especially with management. You know, and with them being on the East Coast, we thought that might be an issue, and it's worked out really well actually. You know, the 3-hour time difference, they can take care of things before most of us are in the office. So that's been great. Their response times, hands down, been some of the best I've seen. So you know, as far as metrics go, one of our first apps we rolled out was the map change app, back in 2018, and I got on server just the other day, and since then we've received about 1,300 map changes over time. And you know, so this is where let's say a field crew member notices a discrepancy in the mapping, maybe a line length or a system configuration is wrong from what they're seeing in the field. We can fix it in the office, and so you know, over time our data quality has really improved, especially on the sanitary side, just getting all those map changes updated. So we kind of started small with just about 5 of our core users, and since then we've grown to we have 45 logins, of which about 20 are daily users. So the different field crews, we have 4 trucks that go out, two CCTV trucks, 2 flushing trucks. They use the system daily. We also have a stormwater department that's using it pretty much daily as well, and some inspectors as well. So you know, over time, getting more and more buy-in and more users using the system on a daily basis. So.
Great. I think we at RockTech is ROI is definitely something that is important, and we did a webinar on that as well, and we are very interested in sort of helping if that's something that your organization needs. And so again, at the end of the survey, if you'd like us to reach out to you about ROI, we are happy to do that. We have one more question for our panelists, and then we will open the floor to any questions that the attendees have. We want to kind of ask our panelists to kind of share any key advice that maybe additional GIS leaders could benefit from hearing firsthand while they possibly consider a move to the cloud. David, let's start back with you.
Sure. We started with the Esri local government's database schema, and it really at the time didn't fit what we had on our old data sets that well, so we started modifying quite a bit. And I would suggest try to stick to the standard schemas as much as possible, because it really helps with rolling out these out-of-the-box apps that Esri releases. So we're kind of backtracking now and trying to make our data fit those standard schemas, and that's taken a lot of time. So yeah, if you can at first, try to fit into the standardized schema as much as possible. Another thing is we were really concerned about training our staff to use our GIS collector. We're thinking, well, we have 30 users and maybe 30 people we potentially have to train. And what ended up happening was I trained just a few of them, and then they were able to train the others. So, and just with the advent of mobile devices, everybody pretty much has a phone, and we are all on iOS. And so with our organization, so everybody's pretty familiar with it, and they can pick it up. Generally speaking, they pick up the iPad and just start using the apps right away, and it requires very little training for them. So.
Great. Andrew, how about what advice would you give?
Don't be intimidated by it. It's, one of the things that I think I was afraid of was losing functionality because of, things, how we had them on premise. It's easy for things that are all in the same environment to sort of communicate with each other, but I was worried about moving to the cloud that, maybe the performance wouldn't be as good as I thought. Maybe we're going to end up having to lose this functionality. I'm worried about the migration process. All of that stuff is answered, and you just kind of figure it out as you go. I mean, it can be challenging at times getting everything to work again the way that you want it to, but don't shy away from any of that if that's what's holding you back from wanting to move to the cloud. Rock has been a fantastic partner with that, and yeah, I mean they've had an answer for everything. So yeah, just don't be intimidated by it.
Great. Jason, do you have any words of advice?
I mean, yeah, I have lots of words, lots of things. But I think the big one would be to, do your homework. Look at all the different options that are out there. Prepare, obviously, is a big one. And I'm not saying this so that you come talk to Rock. You can go talk to anybody. But have somebody that's knowledgeable, at your disposal. Of what it means to move into the cloud. Don't just go set up some servers and hopefully they work. Like I said, it doesn't have to be Rock, doesn't have to be anybody, but find somebody that does understand how these cloud environments work, for proper security, things of that nature. It's just like deploying a system on premise, right? You got to have the right people to do the right things. So just do your homework, talk to other people, talk to other, people that are in your peer group that have maybe done this already, and, try to learn from everybody else's experiences.
Great. Well, thank you so much, panelists. I know that there's probably some questions coming in, so I am going to hand it over to Krista to bring some of those questions to our panelists.
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, panelists. We do have a lot of questions coming in. The attendees were pretty active during your discussion. I'm going to jump right in so we can take advantage of the next 10 minutes. Our first question is from Michael, and he wants to know if federated GIS environments can be hosted in the cloud. This might be something for Jason.
Yeah, it could be for anybody, but yes, of course. There's no difference between an on-premise federated environment versus a federated environment running in the cloud. No different whatsoever.
Thanks, Jason.
That
Another
was easy.
question good. Start with an easy one. Another question we have is, in addition to GIS, are either David or Andrew working with Esri partners? And then Jason, part of this might be for you as well, is, for example, CCTV. A lot of our customers have a lot of video and CCTV data. How is that integrated with the GIS in the cloud environment? Can any of you speak to that?
I can jump in on the one bit, and then I'll hand it over to the other guys. Obviously, not obviously, maybe, but one of the really compelling reasons to utilize a cloud environment for these things that produce a lot of data, like CCTV, like drone, ortho, drone imagery, LiDAR, all these things, is they produce enormous amounts of data, just enormous amounts. And the storage options in a cloud environment for those types of files is incredible. Really low cost. It's not like you have to go ask IT to go give you a new SAN array that's going to cost 25 grand. No, you drop all this stuff in a storage bucket, and it's still accessible to the rest of your system. But the storage costs are, you're only going to pay for what you use, and even what you use, it's incredibly inexpensive. I mean, terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data storage is just at your fingertips and very inexpensive.
Thanks, Jason. David or Andrew, do you have anything to add? I know one of you said you're running GeoCortex, so you do work with some Esri partners.
Yeah, that's I mean, off the top of my head, I think that's the only Esri partner that we work with. It's not, directly Esri or our asset management system. But yeah, GeoCortex, there was really no issues installing it in the cloud. I mean, it's pretty much the same as installing it on premise and how it needs to work. The nice thing too with the cloud is that, we could separate our GeoCortex installation onto its own web server, which again has some performance benefits there. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing.
We actually work a lot with other Esri business partners, specifically because they have a product or a service that they're trying to deploy for a customer, and for whatever reason, getting that new hardware on premise can be difficult or time consuming or whatever. So, we work very closely with lots of other Esri business partners to deploy their solution for a client in the cloud. Just throwing that out there. That's a pretty frequent occurrence.
Good to hear. We like it when you guys all get along.
Kumbaya.
Yeah. All right. We still have a lot of questions and about 6 minutes left, so let's keep moving. There was some discussion about a soft cutoff or a hard cutoff. When you're managing a soft cutoff, how do you manage data editing and maybe doubling your data entry? How is that managed so that you're not having data in two places and people updating in one place but not in the other?
Yeah, I can, because that's something that, we're still in the middle of. So I only edit on premise because that's our production environment right now. So whether it's just editing actual data or changing, schema, I only do it on premise. And then, like I actually just had Jason do earlier today, we'll just send a backup of our GIS data to Rock, and they just restore it in the cloud, and then all of those changes are there. So yeah, I would only edit in one environment. I don't think you would want to duplicate your efforts in two different places.
Yeah, that's essentially the answer. Is you continue all of your production workflows in one environment, and then when it's time for that flip over to the new environment in the cloud, it's usually done on a Friday night or something to that effect. All right, Friday night, no more doing any work on premise. We go in, take all the snapshots and all the backups of all the data, and then just move it into the cloud and start Monday like nothing ever happened.
Thanks. Following up to that question, we do have a few questions that came in that ask about backing up your GIS data or other data that your organization has. Andrew, you mentioned send the data to Rock, and then Jason, you also mentioned backups. Can you just spend a minute maybe clarifying how that works? I know traditionally you could back up onto a drive or back up onto a disk, and we've moved so far past that. Now we're talking about cloud hosting. I'm assuming all the backups done in the cloud as well.
Yeah, that's one of the great advantages. As I was kind of mentioned before, is in the cloud, and this is true to some aspect if you're running virtualized machine like VMware or something on premise, but particularly in the cloud, I mean, we have the ability, and we do, is we can snapshot. Basically, that's a bit for bit copy of your entire environment, all the networking rules, all the servers, everything. We take these snapshots once every 12 hours. It could be done more frequently.
Wow.
But so we snapshot this, the entire environment that you have, and we pick up that data and we ship it off to another geographic zone. So if your GIS enterprise is hosted in, an East Coast availability zone, what we would want to do is take that, snapshot of your environment, and we would ship it out to a data center out west. So, heaven forbid something happened to that data center, it gets wiped off the map, or something fails, we still have that ability to literally spin up your machine as it is within just a couple of clicks. So that's really important. So in the case of a lot of people have been getting the ransomware attacks. Your entire system is getting encrypted. That's not an issue anymore, because we can take your environment before it was attacked, spin it back up as it was. And again, the same with SQL Server. We take very frequent backups and ship them off to another zone. All of it is very, very straightforward. You can hold on to these backups for a really long period of time if you need to do that for compliance. It's just everything in the cloud is just so much easier to deal with, specifically in backups and snapshotting environments.
Well, it sounds good to me. I remember struggling with backups when I was at the water utility. So you've convinced me. I'm like, oh my gosh, it sounds great. All right, let's keep moving along. We have an attendee who was asking quite a few questions around the cloud and Amazon Web Services versus Azure. It's pretty complicated, so I might share that with you guys. Well, I will share it with you. Maybe you can follow up with this attendee and answer all of those questions. But one of the things Kelly's asking about is also the Esri health check. It was mentioned several times. We didn't really discuss it. How do you get an Esri health check, and is there a cost associated with it? If we could just take a minute to answer that. And then Kelly, we will follow up on your other questions.
Yeah, so we had the Esri health check done last year. There is a cost associated with it, and it's typically done as sort of a two-part thing. Is the first one is identifying issues. They'll go and they'll install our GIS monitor on your system, and it will sit there and watch everything that's going on and come back with reports of throughput and map services that are being used more frequently than others. And then we spend, a week or more maybe going through the results of that with somebody from Esri. And then the second part to that then is then resolving those issues. In our case, we didn't end up doing that second part because we decided to go with the cloud. So it sort of, blew up our on-premise issues anyway. So, but yeah, long story short, yes, there's a cost. But I think it's definitely worth doing if you're having issues that you can't figure out. And even if you're not having issues, I think it's just good to do in general.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, David, Jason. We do still have questions coming in, but we are at the top of the hour. As I mentioned, I will share the questions with our panel and with Jennifer. Hopefully we can make sure that you get some answers from them. We appreciate you joining the webinar today. As you can see on the last slide here, if you would like to follow up with any of the panelists, please don't hesitate to reach out to them. You see their emails here, and they're also on LinkedIn. Thank you again. Thank you everyone on the panel. Great panel discussion today. Bye-bye.